Okay, guys, I got a pop quiz for you. Picture yourself as a badass villain, and you are about to declare your intention to attack a bunch of heroes. Let's just assume that you're a very theatrical kind of villain here. You're like gentle, you know, you can't just sneak attack them, you have to like announce your presence, okay? How do you do that? Do you state your presence like, I am the villain, prepare to die, hero? Or do you like show off your ability in some grandiose way? No. I'll tell you what you do. What you really want to do if you want to make those heroes piss their pants. You cue up the hardcore screamo music in the background. I know I'm getting ahead of myself because that's at the end of the episode, but wasn't that one of the most metal scenes ever when the villains begin their attack? You're expecting some kind of like really ominous music in the background, like oh. No, it's freaking. It's like I'm like okay, that got my blood pumping. You got me sold, My Hero Academia. More badass villain introduction scenes need to include about 300% more screamo in every anime in the future. But yeah, before we get to any of that, let's get to the training camp section of the training camp arc. This is the only part that's actually going to be real training at the end of this episode. Well, I guess the rest of this could be considered training in a sense, but it's not so much training to get stronger, it's more about training or you die kind of deal. This will be My Hero Academia Season 3, Episode 3, or Episode 41, I guess I should just say, just to keep it straight with the thumbnails. So the episode's name is Kota, focusing on the cousin of Mandalay, that little kid that we were introduced to last episode. I originally thought he was around maybe like 9 or 10 years old. It turns out he's like 5, which, you know, you can never really tell when it comes to anime. I mean, like, everyone in Class 1A is like, you know, what, like 14, 15 years old, and they look a little bit older than that, depends on who you're talking about. I thought Kota doesn't look like a 5-year-old, but okay, fine. But at the beginning of this episode, we get introduced to the rest of the Wild Pussycats, which are, of course, references to Josie and the Pussycats, if you remember that old cartoon, which I think it was an actual band also, but I just remember the cartoon. So yeah, last time we got introduced to Mandalay and Pixie Bob. This time we get introduced to Ragdoll and Tora. Ragdoll being the one on the bottom left, and Tora being the very notably muscular man on the right. And a little bit of backstory involving Tora. And this is something that when it comes to, like, spoilers, I don't really consider spoilers. I don't consider, like, characters' names spoilers, so I'm gonna be using the names of some of the villains that actually haven't had their proper introduction yet. I don't consider just knowing someone's name a spoiler, okay? Wow, you know the gas mask villain's name is actually Mustard, okay. I'm spoiled horribly. And also, I don't consider, like, little extra notes and stuff the author gives, like in between the chapters, really spoiler stuff. So, just to throw it out there, Tora is actually a transgendered man. He was originally a woman, spent some time in Thailand, and now he's a man. I am dead serious about this. I am not making it up, straight from Horikoshi's pen. Okay, but just a little trivia note there. All of their quirks together are basically the perfect mechanism for training a large group of kids, because you couldn't have a lot of the teachers from UA come out here to the training camp to help everybody. They can only really spare Aizawa and Blood King, who are the teachers of Class 1A and 1B respectively. They can't observe every single student in their classes, and with Class 1A and 1B working together to train, you got 40 kids you gotta keep track of all their quirks and everything like that. That's what the Pussycats are here for. So you got Ragdoll's ability, which is search or scan, allowing her to keep track of multiple targets at once and figuring out their exact location and their weak points. Then you have Mandalay's quirk, which is revealed to be a telekinesis ability, which allows her to, like, relay information and where to improve directly into that person's head. We've already seen Pixie Bob's ability in the last episode, which is Earth Flow, allowing her to create the perfect training area for every specific student. And then Tora's ability is Pile-a-Body, or Ply-a-Body, like pliable. That's what it's making a reference of, like something pliable. He can maneuver his body around as if it's made of, like, rubber or something, like some kind of, like, straw hat wearing pirate or whatever. Anyway, his thing is basically going to be focused on the strength-based quirks like Izuku's. So, he's like, come on, hit me, student, give me a plus ultra! And Izuku's like, okay, 5%! And then, using his malleable body, he could just avoid the attack and punch Izuku into the face, into the side of a tree. The whole idea with this, and how to get their quirks stronger, is just to continuously use them up until their upper limits, to the point where it becomes rather painful, and then after that, just like a muscle fiber will tear and get stronger when you work out, that will make their quirks stronger. I can think of a few issues with this. By this logic, you should go to, by this logic, if I want to get, stronger, I should go to the gym and lift a bunch of weights that I obviously wouldn't be able to lift, to the point where I'm in excruciating pain. And then I'm like, oh, I can't move my arms. Alright, keep going. Okay. I don't think that would really help me in the long run if I just kept doing it continuously. Think that would do more harm than good. But Blood King states that it's like that with quirks. So maybe it's not the exact same thing. Maybe that is more efficient with quirks. Like if you just overexert your quirks a lot, and then give a little bit of time for rest, and then just overexert them again, little bit time for rest, and if you keep that cycle, the quirks will improve, little by little, or maybe even a lot, because they state that under normal circumstances, this would happen as you grow, but with the increased in villain activity, we gotta get this shit done now. So, this is something really cool, because in the manga when this training was shown, and it was really just one big double-page spread, I recall, of all of the different students of Class 1A in the middle of their training. Like, we see Bakugo blowing something up in a barrel, we see Todoroki sitting in a bathtub, we see Tsuyu, climbing up on a mountain, we see Tokoyami in a cave, we don't see him, we just hear, something shouting coming out of a cave, we see Kaminari hooked up to a generator. We don't really get introspection on each one of their training and how it actually works. Now, in the manga, Horikoshi did go the extra mile and actually listed in between the chapters, what their individual trainings actually were. Well, that's adapted into the episode, so each character's quirk, we get to know how they're training and why. Most of these are understandable, like the whole Kaminari hooking himself up to a generator, that makes sense. Just continuous electrical output to the point where, he doesn't become an idiot, or he can output a lot more. Kota's ability of voice, just, shout, vocal exercises to increase the range. Obviously, strength-based quirks like Izuku's, you just gotta keep, you gotta keep fighting, you gotta keep, breaking those muscle fibers. Todoroki's was one that confused me in the manga. I didn't really understand it. He was sitting in a bathtub and just alternating back between cold and hot. And I originally thought how this worked was he was sitting in boiling water, and he was trying to use his his ice quirk while he was in boiling water, or vice versa, sitting in freezing frigid water and trying to use his hot part of his quirk. It would be difficult for him to use the hot part while his body is freezing. I thought that's what it originally was. Not exactly. What it is he's just sitting in water, and his goal is to quickly alternate hot, cold, fire, ice, to try to regulate the temperature in the tub to get it, moderate, room temperature. That's what his goal is, to control the exact amount of temperatures that he's outputting, and to eventually use both of his quirks at the exact same time. So, a little bit different there. Ida's is pretty simple. He's just, running laps around the entire training camp. Jiro and Ashido are training with their quirks. Jiro is basically just slamming her earphone jacks into a rock wall to increase their sharpness and their efficiency. Ashido is just constantly emitting acid. Aoyama is just constantly firing off his navel laser. You have Bakugo, who's putting his hands into boiling water to open up his sweat glands to just increase explosions. And it's funny for Bakugo, because every time he uses his quirk, he always shouts something like, I'm gonna back away from the mic when I do this. He's just like, die! 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 Damn it! Piece of shit! Die! That's how Bakugo always uses his quirk. But when he's constantly, it kind of sounds like he's even exhausted saying his taunts, when he's throwing his hands into the water, damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Okay, fine. Damn it! Die! Because he's gotten into the habit of, I guess, saying it every time he uses his quirk, but now he has to constantly use it again and again, so his voice is definitely getting a workout as well. Hagakure's quirk, I think she got, honestly, the easiest out of all of these. Because when it comes to quirks like Kaminare's that are like an output type, you have to like just, or Sero's tape, you know, just constantly shooting tape out of your body, and it's kind of draining and it looks rather painful. The training that Shoji and Hagakure are doing, Shoji is just using his dupla arms to increase, you know, his like different eyes and ears to kind of sense Hagakure, and all Hagakure is doing is just working on her stealth. So she's really not, you know, exerting herself to the point where she's in a massive amount of pain or, you know, exhaustion. She's just, you know, dancing around trying not to get spotted, just working on her stealth, which is something I would assume she would probably be working on her entire life because she obviously wants to be a hero and she's Invisible Girl. So, you know, she was probably working on her whole stealth part as soon as she got like, oh, I'm gonna join UA. Okay, I better work on this invisible part. So, I think Hagakure definitely got the easy end of this. Class 1B shows up, and I would have loved for them to include a scene where we see how Class 1B's training is going. We know the names of, I think, every single quirk in Class 1B, but we just don't know how they all operate. Like, there's that girl that's, like, very, like, kind of hunched over with the haircut that kind of covers her whole face, and her quirk is called Mushroom, which makes sense. She looks like a mushroom, but we don't know what that entails. You know, there's the kid with the weird like helmet thing, but that's actually his face, and that's like he has like a glue quirk. We know I don't remember I think it starts with an M. I don't remember the name of this kid, but it's his quirk is copy, so he can copy other quirks for a certain amount of time. You know, that's how his thing goes. So we don't get to see that. We know that they're training in a similar way. We just don't get to see it. But it's interesting, if nothing else. Also, I gotta bring it up because I am me, and I noticed it. Immediately I noticed it. Ragdoll is stacked. Ragdoll has got it going on in the boob department. Yeah, Ragdoll, best member of the Wild Wild Pussycats, by far. I hope nothing bad happens to her. No spoilers, no spoilers. Everything is fine. Anime-only watchers, don't worry about Ragdoll. She's gonna get out of this completely fine. Shit. Okay, though, but then we get the scenes with Kota. The episode is named Kota, so yeah, there is development with him. It's actually handled fairly well, though. Up until this point, Izuku was trying to help out Kota because, you know, he is somebody that has parents killed by a villain, and he kind of just despises not just villains, but heroes and the entire superpower society in general, and that's kind of elaborated on here. And he seems rather mature for a 5-year-old kid, but his way of viewing it is just like this. He's just like, everyone's going around talking about, like, quirks and heroes and villains. Like, this is all stupid. Like, my parents are dead, and people are treating it like it's a game. I think that's basically kind of like the way that he's viewing the world. Like, it's just like you're giving them names like hero and villain and quirks and superpowers and all this shit. Like, my parents are they're just dead. They're not coming back, and they're dead. And you know, that seems like kind of the perspective he's viewing, and he just despises the entire society, essentially. And Izuku tries to cheer him up. He gives him some food. He tries to talk to him out of this. Because Deku was somebody that was inspired by All Might growing up. You know, that's his entire life was like around All Might. So I think Izuku feels like if there's going to be somebody that's going to teach this kid about how superheroes are cool and superhuman society is a good thing, you know, I gotta do it. Or maybe All Might. He tries to say he tries to talk to Aizawa if All Might could show up, but he's not. You know, they had to, you know, keep other villains away, so they had to, like, keep the members of, like, who know the location of the training camp to a minimum. So, yeah, and there's a scene where he's talking to Todoroki about this, Izuku is. And Izuku's like, what would you said to him, Todoroki? And Todoroki says, you know, somebody just trying to change your perspective on the on your entire outlook on the world, just by a few words, and you constantly trying to do that would be more irritating than anything. Which makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm just gonna use something that we were discussing the other day on a stream, the flat earth theory. Imagine, okay, you know somebody that believes in the flat earth theory, right? You know, you're not gonna convince them otherwise, just constantly nagging them like, come on, man, you know the earth is really round, right? Come on, there's so much evidence for it. They would just get irritated after a while. They're not gonna listen to you. Alright, so that's basically what Todoroki's saying. It's just like, you could try to talk to him all you want, but actions matter way more than words. And if you're going to use words, they better be pretty impactful. They better not be just some kind of half-hearted thing. Because Kota has probably heard this a million times already. You know, it's like, come on, Kota, superheroes are good. The hero society is a good thing. You know, your parents died heroes, and they were fighting villains. He's probably heard this for the last, ever since his parents died. He's probably heard this shit. He's like, shut up. I don't want to hear it anymore. I hate this shit. You know, and so, yeah, Izuku kind of realizes that what he was doing up to this point probably wasn't really helping. We do get one scene where we see an example of Kota's quirk, because his parents were, his dad was like Water Hose. I think that was the name of the hero he was. And they had a water-based quirk, and we cut over to the side of this wall here, and we see a water jet that shot into the side of the mountain. That is Kota's quirk, so we'll see maybe if he'll be able to use that later on and against some villains. I wonder. And speaking of villains, let's get to it, because let's be honest here, the Kota thing is probably not that interesting for a lot of people. So first off, we got Toga. Oh, Toga, how you doing? Also, we got Dabi hanging out here, and Dabi's pretty badass. They decided this time around, instead of sending a bunch of riffraff after the kids like they did at the USJ, just a bunch of random thugs they picked up off the street, let's do this right. Let's take, I think it's called the Villain Vanguard unit or something. Like, let's take the 10 elite villains that want to join the Villain Association. Not the villains. I'm crossing into my One Punch Man there a little bit there. The League of Villains. Let's take like the strongest ones we got, make a Vanguard unit, and then attack the camp. And that's what they do. So they begin to attack at the end of the episode when all of the students are in the middle of a test of courage. You know, one of those things where they have to loop around a circle and other students jump out and try to scare them, and they have to make their all the way back, and they completed a test of courage. Apparently this is just a thing you do in Japanese high school society. I've never done it once in my life, so it just proves once again that Japanese high schools, at least Japanese high schools in the world of manga, are way more interesting than them over here. But, yeah, so while they're in the middle, they're basically out in the middle of the woods while they're doing this. They're wandering through the woods. They broke up into teams of 2, and they're going through the woods, in pairs, 3 minutes apart, so there's a bunch of kids out there. That's when the League of Villains decides to make their attack, where one of them, Mustard, is capable of emitting some type of gas in order to immobilize the students, a poisonous gas. Some of them figure out what it is, some of them don't, some of them pass out, some of them manage to like cover their mouths really quickly and try to get away. Dabi's quirk is fire-based, similar to Endeavor, so he begins to light up the trees and there begins to be a fire, and that worries all the other students, like, oh, what's going on here? Pixie Bob is hanging out with the other students as they're ready to go into the forest. She gets drawn away with some sort of like telekinetic, magnetic force into the tree line and gets her head caved in by a freaking villain, so she's out. Mandalay begins to get ready to attack. Tora gets ready to attack. Aizawa is back at the lodge, tutoring the other kids, like, it was, like, Sero and, Sato that were, like, the extra lessons, so they're back there in the middle of that lecture. So everybody's just kind of scattered, and in the manga, they have, like, a scene where everybody's at, just to kind of, for you to remember, and I'm sure next episode we'll probably get that, too, just like a scene, like, okay, here are the students that are in the forest, here are the students that are at the waiting point, here are the students and the teachers that are at the lodge. So we'll probably get like that next episode to really figure out like where everybody's at and how this fight's really going to go down. Izuku is immediately worried about Kota, who's hanging out at some private like overlook, like a little like a cave with a rocky ridge that overlooks the whole camp. That's like his secret spot. And so the last scene of the episode is a mysterious shadowy figure emerging behind Kota at his lookout spot. So Izuku's going to rush to his aid next episode, and we're going to see how that goes down there. But other than that, we have some pretty imposing villains, of course, Dabi and Toga, but also we have the lizard dude who's named Spinner, and this muscular, also a transgender character who is identifies as a female, Magni. So yeah, that's something that's going to be coming up soon. I look forward to what your reactions to this fight's going to be, because as somebody who has read the manga, and given that, you know, that punk freaking screamo thing at the end of the episode, I don't think you need to be psychic or have read the manga to understand this is going to be different. This is going to be different from, like, the USJ or previous encounters. This is going to be cray-cray. This is going to be serious. This is going to be like an actual life or death kind of battle, okay? So just keep that in mind. And let's move forward. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It was a good one. I'm not really one to rank things like out of 10 or 5 out of 5 stars or whatever. That's not really how I do things. But this would certainly be like, I would certainly give this like close to a 5 out of 5. Maybe like a 4.5 stars out of 5 or something like that. Pretty good. You know, if it only lacks somewhere, it's just because I really don't care about the Kota thing. I sympathize with the kid. I understand where he's coming from and shit. But I want to get to the badass villain part. I mean, come on, that's the part we all care about, right? Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Here's a shot of Ragdoll's boobs just one more time before we go, just to get it and get your fix. Okay, cool. Have a great one, everybody. Tekking101 signing out.